Welcome to TCN Talks. The goal of our podcast is to provide concise and relevant information for busy hospice and palliative care leaders and staff. We understand your busy schedules and believe that brevity signals respect. And now, here's our host, Chris Como.
Hello and welcome to TCN Talks. Our guest today is a dear friend and a longtime mentor, probably one of my most treasured mentors in my life. Quint Studer is the founder of Healthcare Plus Solutions Group. Quint, it's so great to have you.
Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you for leading by example for me for these many, many years.
Well, you're great, Quint. Well, what does our audience need to know about you?
Well, I think I'm a lifelong learner. I think I've not only write about it, but I've done it, which, like you, I've operated things. I've had lots of employees. I've been president of a hospital, ran a medical group. I've had an insurance company, and then I started my own company in 2000, sold it in 2015, took a sabbatical, which they call a non-compete for a while, but got very involved in the community. But I've always been engaged. I've written a number of books, and I just want to always make life better for people that are in the trenches, particularly those frontline managers who have such a tough job, and try to create tools and techniques that help people really be successful in their job. Hopefully it will go into their successful in their life and really not only attain high performance, but do everything we can to help organizations sustain it.
Wow. Well, Quint, that's great. When I reflect, I think there are two bugs I caught from you. Number one is to be insatiably curious. I love that. And then to always leave whatever we've been given domain over better than we found it, whether it's making it a great place to work, a better family, a better community, whatever it is. And you've just modeled that so amazingly throughout your career and your life. And on behalf of a whole lot of people, thank you for that, because we've caught that bug from you.
You're welcome, and I love seeing the legacy you're continuing to create.
Well, Quint, recently you've loved what you've done now with Healthcare Plus Solutions Group, and you engaged in a study. What did you study, and what did you learn from this study?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was in Orlando about a year ago, and they started asking me questions about what am I seeing in healthcare with staffing models, because everybody's struggling with staffing. I sat there and I said, I really don't have a good answer to that. I know a little bit of what Mayo Clinic's doing, or a little bit of what this skilled nursing facility's doing, or this hospice is doing, or, I know a little bit of everybody's doing something because everybody's got the same pain point, people. Yep. And so I got curious about it, and I called the American Nurse Association, Katie Boston Leary, who's somebody I've had a good relationship over the years, told her I would be interested in funding a study on this topic of staffing models. And I wanted to be independent. I wanted to be shared, because it was interesting. Because I asked them who I should use to do the study. Because when I do studies, I want it so pure and so independent, no one can question it. And they said Jocelyn Insight is the company that they would utilize. I called Jocelyn Insight, and I said, for the amount of money we're spending here, which is six figures, can you send me a sample study? And he said, well, it's really hard because most studies I do are proprietary and people don't want them shared. And I said, okay. Well, so I sort of went on trust, and it worked. They were phenomenal. But I also made that decision at that point that this will be a public domain research. Because if you want to help everyone, you can't hold the study to yourself. So we're sharing it with everyone. So it was really a study to really dig into mostly clinicians on what they're looking at and what they think could be helpful in staffing models.
And what did you come up with, Quint? Because I know I've kind of reviewed it. There seems like there's some pretty fascinating outcomes.
Well, first of all, what was really neat is they had never had a response like this. They were hoping to get a couple hundred. They got 3,000, almost 3,200, so it's a 99% validity. Yeah, some high-end things we found. We found that managers are seeing the environment in some ways different than the frontline employee. Now, it's not that they're not listening to the frontline employee. They just assume that the frontline employee is seeing it like they do. So I think the big one for me, Chris, is there was a question about readiness for change. And I think you and I both been there, where we have about 30% of the people in the study are ready for change. They're ready, maybe 35%. Well, these are the people we talk to. These are the people that come up to us. These are the people that nod their heads, particularly if they're on the executive team. And then we assume that more people are with us than not. Now you've got about 30% or so, maybe 35% again, that are not ready for change. They're going to want to keep it the same. That's not unusual. I found in communities, in non-healthcare, you're always going to have a certain group that's going to be not ready to change. But then you've got about 30% in that middle, which we call neutral. They could go either way. So the big issue is don't assume because people are nodding their heads at you, don't assume because people are telling you what they think you want to hear that you're going to be successful. Because this has been tried before with staffing models, and normally it doesn't work because we don't get the critical mass. So I think not assuming there's more change readiness in your organization there is. So my message at the American College of Healthcare Executives when I presented this is you've got to become an expert in change management. Everybody, not just the executives at the top, but that frontline manager has to understand change management. A couple other key points, Chris, is in staffing models, you've got to make sure the frontline staff get it. Again, that goes into readiness for change because some of them are a little concerned about the changes that are being made. Number 3, hang on to your certified nurse assistants and your charge nurses and your LPNs. They are a hot commodity now because as we look at staffing models, those have become the people that particularly acute care wants to recruit. So if you're an organization, I just spoke to a large national healthcare corporation that does senior centers, and I said, you're going to be shocked at how acute care systems are going to be out to recruit your CNAs, your charge nurses, and your LPNs. So
wow.
keep love those people or somebody else is going to love them. The other key points I thought, which were really, very, very important, is people are desperate for skill training. So frontline managers, 92% of them want more skill building, and 80-something% of frontline employees want more skill building, which doesn't surprise us with the pandemic. But, we weren't doing a great job even before the pandemic in many organizations. But they don't think they're getting it. So less than 40% truly think they're getting it. Now, it doesn't mean the organization, Chris, doesn't think they're providing it. Mm-hmm. It's that the people might not think they're getting it. You got to connect the dots. So I was, again, with an organization, they're spending a lot of time on helping their leaders get skills. And there's a key question, an employee engagement call. Do you feel the organization is supporting you? And it's really important now. Yet, until I connected the dots that this comes under the category of organizational support. You are being taken off-site, provided this training, because you are being supported. I think we've got to really work on, 1, offering skill development. Absolutely. Documenting skill development. We're doing some really neat things if we can go in deeper detail if you'd like on that. And then I think you've really got to connect the dots with the people that you're committed to their skill development and career development. So those were some of the change management. Love your charge nurses, your LPNs, and your CNAs particularly, because everybody's going to want them right now. And really look at that whole idea of skill development and career development and connect the dots to that's all about organizational support.
Wow. Well, Quint, the CNA and LPN is fascinating to me, and I'm glad you said that because we definitely do need to love those people because finding them in certainly hospice and palliative care, skilled nursing care, senior living communities. One of the things we had, Sheila Burke, I don't know if you know Sheila Quint, she's at part of Harvard, and so she did a great segment with me about the staffing challenge. And there was about a 5-minute segment in that podcast. Literally, I've rewound it like 5 times. It's like a platform for what you need to do nationally with the staffing challenge. But one thing that she said, and I've heard from a lot of other experts similarly, helping nurses practice to the maximum extent of their license. In other words, what are those things that you could take other disciplines like LPN, CNAs, and then in the hospice segment, we've even talked about EMTs and graphing them into the care model. So that one absolutely resonates. The other interesting one that you bumped into is the skilled training. I forget the years. And so I think it's something like 1,000,000 years of experience we're losing in healthcare that Sheila Burke alluded to. And we kind of hypothesize out loud that a lot of those nurses that are retiring, and there's so many years, ICU experience, just, amazing nursing experience that's walking out, they don't want to come back and work shifts, but would they be available to be almost like a mentor, even remotely, to some of these new nurses? So that maybe that's an idea maybe you and I could work on, but I thought that was a fascinating idea.
Thank you to our TCN Talks sponsor, Delta Care RX. Delta Care RX is also the title sponsor for our May and November 2023 Leadership Immersion courses. Delta Care RX is primarily known as a national hospice, PBM, and prescription mail order company. Delta Care RX is a premier vendor of TCN and provides not only pharmaceutical care, but also niche software innovations that save their customers time, stress, and money. Thank you, Delta Care RX, for all the great work you do in end-of-life and serious illness care.
And the study backs that up. The study asks a question about how do you feel about re-recruiting retired nurses? And that was really, they do a gap. Is it, how close are we to being aligned? And that's one where staff and managers are both aligned. The other thing is calling them a resource nurse. What are some people that can just come in and help us? And the other issue, Chris, is the whole idea of mentorship. It's sort of a hot topic. We got books on mentor. But what Katie Boston Larry talks about a lot, and I've seen it, is make sure your people are mentors, not tormentors. So you've got to really be careful and train and develop mentors so they understand. Because a lot of times you think your mentors are the people that are the best at it. They might not be the best mentor because it comes too easy for them. Yep. So I've always, something that's come easy for me, it might sound crazy, I do better getting up in front of a group than sitting at a dinner table. So somebody might say to me, hey, can you help me be a good public speaker? Sure, you get up on stage, grab the mic, and you start talking. But now that's that's easy for me. Now if somebody said, can we sit down and have a dinner conversation with 6 people? I'd start sweating profusely on how do you do those things. So you got to be really, really sensitive when you look at preceptor and mentorship, that you train those people specifically on development.
That's really good, Quint. Now, you alluded to, said we could go deeper, something about the documentation about the training that we're doing.
Yeah, I think what we need to do, and we've been doing this with a couple of organizations, particularly Tri-Health in Cincinnati, is look at individual development. So, precision medicine is so great right now, and it didn't exist 15 years ago, and it started off with melanoma cancer. And all of a sudden they looked at the individual. We now have biomarkers, we have mutations that we can look at, and by looking at a person as an individual, we can do a treatment that fits what they need. And I think in training, and please, for those listeners, I'm not saying you don't stop what you've been doing. I'm all for big group training. I'm for all training is good training. But I don't think we drive it down to the individual. And when you look at it, and Chris talking about losing talent, usually in an organization, we have not found any organization that has less than 25% of their managers that have less than 3 years experience. Many times it's 50% if you had people that are managers but are in a different role because of the Great Resignation. We call them one-ups. They've all moved one up. So you've got anywhere from 25 to 50% of your people with less than 3 years experience. So no, we can't go back to where we were because they weren't even there when we were there. So we're really looking at individual. And so what we've done is we've created something called an OSR. And the O would be Chris. I would sit down and figure out what outcome do we want Chris to drive. We try to keep it, not that it's other outcomes. We sort of want to focus on one outcome specifically we want to see enhanced. So we pick the outcome. And then we say, well, to achieve that outcome, what skills does Chris need? And then we also dig deeper, though. We really look at a self-awareness checklist on how do you think you're on this skill. We use personality profiles, whether it's Myers-Briggs, DISC, or MBS. We look at some testing on how do you learn best. Are you a visual learner? Do you learn by doing? And then we even can, depending on the person, just do a quick down and simple $58 test on critical thinking if you want to use it. So what we want to do is diagnose the individual. So how can we make sure we can maximize their training and development to acquire that skill? And then we do one other thing, Chris. We have not found a lack of resources in organizations. I think organizations, particularly that don't achieve their goals, actually have more resources. Somebody's saying, well, gee, our communication is down. Let's have one more resource. We found an organization recently that had 18 different training modules for communication. And I find the less accountability you have, the more resources you create. And so you go in and you say, what are the best resources for our leaders? And then we've done something else, Chris, that I don't think existed. Create more of a rotten tomato checklist. So if somebody can go in and use that resource, somebody reads one of my books, they go in and say, was this helpful or not? And maybe it wasn't. So then we should know that so we can take that resource off sort of our learning management system. So we called it OSR, and we're really calling it Precision Leadership Development. And what's really nice, Chris, is when you present this, particularly frontline managers, you hear a sigh of relief because it's not 100 things I got to learn. So I'll give you one example, scheduling. We have found that that's a huge issue right now with frontline managers because during COVID, they were sort of given a blank check. And what is, we need to get people in here. So overtime was okay. Worked with, again, a non-acute care organization not too long ago that was spent, I think, $18 million on agency staffing the last year. And they had never spent that type of money before. And so all of a sudden now you're saying, hey, we need to get away from that if we can, and we need to watch the overtime. They've never scheduled. So we found 82% of frontline managers want help in scheduling. So let's help them in scheduling. So the outcome would be achieving budget. The skill would be scheduling. And then you'd say, what are the resources we can provide them for scheduling? And then the last question we ask is, what are some barriers that you might face in order to achieve this? And we just find that individualizing training, again, take precision medicine. Nothing wrong with the treatments we did, but we can now provide better care through precision medicine. Nothing wrong with the training we did before, but I think we can provide now enhanced training through individualizing at precision leadership development.
Quint, how much feedback does the individual, so if you are working with me to develop my own development plan, how much say do I have compared to the leader? Is it a collaborative process?
It's 100% collaborative. So it starts out like this. We all are going to agree on the outcome because the outcome's based pretty much on objective type measurement. But then what we do, Chris, is we decide what skills do you need for your role that you're in. And then you give yourself a self-awareness rating on a 1 through 10. Then as your supervisor, I also give you a rating on a 1 through 10. Then we sort of meet in the middle and say, are we close or aren't we close? So I think the whole key to this is the collaboration. So it's a collaborative plan. And then we ask this, I call it the magic question, Chris. When we sort of got your outcome, your skills, your resources, I say, is this really doable, Chris? So is this doable? Because if it's not doable, let's not talk about it. So a great example at Cooperman Barnabas in New Jersey, they wanted the nurse manager to round on every patient every day. It's not doable. When we really looked at it, it was 42 patients. They wanted 5 questions in the software tool. And we sat here and said, okay, how many patients can you round on? Can you round on the new admits? Can you ask one question? And Chris, here's the question for your listeners that is, again, an important question. Instead of asking 100 questions or 5 questions, you say, what's your biggest worry or concern right now? That's where we start. So, yeah, I think our whole approach is collaborative right now, which I think really is a key to this whole thing. And then when we say, is it doable, talk about collaborative and what's your barrier. And the other thing that we do, particularly TriHealth has done a great job on this, is the 1UP also has a role in the development. I think, again, not maybe in your organization. I know you don't, but many organizations, they put too much weight on training's HR's job, or we've got some OD person. No. They can help facilitate some things. Your job is to develop the people that report to you. And so we all even have a little 1UP column. It's what's the 1UP? What should the 1UP should be doing to support the development of that individual that reports to them?
Wow. Well, Quint, when you and I did this podcast last year, we're still in the wake of COVID. My biggest takeaway in that one is you said mental and emotional health is no longer soft skills or nice to have. It's now essential. It feels like you're saying, and now also what's essential is just basically facilitating the development and learning and growth of the team around you. Is that accurate?
If you want to keep people, and let me give you some statistics too. Once again, research that we did with the American Nurse Association and the American Organization of Nurse Leadership shows how desperate people are for skill development. But there's other research too. Research shows that 87% of people, particularly young people, will stay in the job they're in if they feel they're being developed, yet only 29% feel they're getting it. So the message is, invest in skill development. And it's really the key to go, but it doesn't have to be that expensive if you individualize it, because most places have the resources. They just don't have a good way to utilize the current resources they have in place.
Wow. Well, Quint, you alluded to something earlier, and you wrote a blog recently about change is hard. So you were talking earlier about the challenge of change management. So your blog was titled, Change is Hard, Be Kind to Yourself as You Bounce. This just feels really timely, considering all the challenges we're facing in healthcare. What are some key points from that blog that you love to kind of share today?
Yeah, I think as a leader, and if you look at it, came from Keith McFarland's work in the book Bounce. I'm not going to go backwards because I think we've all been through the anger, the frustration, the loneliness, and the valley of despair. That's sort of where we've been hanging out in healthcare for a couple of years, that valley of despair. But I think our job is to move out of the valley of despair. And I think while the book says, look at the new reality, Dan Collard, my colleague, says the now normal. The now reality. Okay, so let's look at this. We got to change how we staff. We got to change how we develop. And like you said earlier, Chris, before we got on the line, you're going to have people that want to stay the way it is. You want people that want to, change it. Well, there's a combination in there that fits. So the two things that keep an organization from bouncing, or a leader from bouncing, or an employee, is denial that they even need to change. And that is really combined with nostalgia. Somehow it was better and we need to go back there. And people sort of put rose-colored glasses on with nostalgia. I mean, you talk to my mother and she thinks I was the perfect child. Those types of things. It's that nostalgia that people get into. But then you have to provide what we call informed optimism. And I think this informed optimism really ties into this development. Because I'm a big believer in human beings, Chris, and I think most people want to do a good job. I don't think it's a will issue. I always go to a skill issue, and then the devil's in the detail. So what I just talked about with you, Chris, was digging into the detail. So what outcome does that person need to acquire? What skills do they really need to have? Let's look at their profile. So if you're a real people person, and we're going to have to really tighten up on the budget, I'm going to have to help you with that skill because that's going to be really, really hard with you. If you're a real metric-driven person that doesn't really have a lot of empathy, but we're talking about doing some things to hold people because people want to feel they're cared for, then I'm going to have to work with you on empathy. So we really want to go into the details to find out how does that person best learn, and then dig into resources. And it's really amazing. Like I say, our pilot organization's been TriHealth in Cincinnati. And then you use the analytics. So they can go in and tell you, based on 2 questions in their employee engagement survey, do I get communicated in an open and honest manner? And am I feeling organizational support? Those are 2 key questions because those are the 2 top key questions in retention today. Supervisor has gone to 7. Those are 1 and 2. They go in and they can tell by leader what percentage you are in employee engagement. So by going and sort of devil's in the detail, I know where you're at. Then I can use the analytics to see what resources we can provide you. And then they're provided. They also know who does really well on those. And then they're provided a mentor, internal mentor, that does well to coach internally, and there's a role for one-up. So it's very, very exciting to see. I think it's the game changer in skill development.
Wow. Well, Quint, any final thoughts? You're getting back into healthcare now, which, by the way, I think is so incredible. Any other just final thoughts or pearls that you're picking up as you're getting to dig in again in healthcare?
Yeah, I think we can make it less. I think what happens over the years, you keep adding things, Chris, and you've been with me for lots of years. We start asking one question, then somebody says, well, let's add these questions. Then somebody from safety says, let's add these questions. Next thing you know, the leader has 11 questions, and somebody says, well, let's get some software for it. So now we've got this poor manager who's new, overwhelmed, asking all these questions, having to document it, which acts like we don't trust them when we're making them document almost the document that they documented the documentation. So what we're finding the formula, Chris, is figure out less. What can that person do less of? What then, if they do it less, they can do it always. Then they get consistency, and then they get better outcomes. So the question is, can you ask every patient, what's your biggest worry or concern? Can you ask that one question? The answer is usually yes. With the employee, Chris, and I know we're running short of time, we ask the question, where's your battery? Where's your battery? We don't say, how are you? People say, I'm fine, and sadly commit suicide 8 hours later. So the question is, if you were a phone, because we take great care of our phones, what is your battery today? And that's the one question there, because somebody's going to say an 80, a 60, a 40. And in healthcare, when people have a low rating, the people rally around them. How can I help you? It also allows us to have those great conversations on how we can help someone with mental health, because only 1% to 3% of people in healthcare ever seek any mental health services. So I think those are the two questions. What's your greatest concern or worry? And you could ask that to managers too. And what's your battery today?
That's awesome, Quint. Well, Quint, one of my favorite movies in the whole wide world is Secondhand Lions. Robert Mitchum, I believe, and Robert Duvall. And there's a great line in there that basically they want to go out with their boots on. You're at a stage in your life and your career, you could sit back, you've had such a great impact. But I love the fact that you're like, hey, I'm jumping in. Healthcare needs some help. And so just thank you. You could be not doing that, but that just says what your heart is. And so I just appreciate you, and I know a lot of other people do as well.
Well, it replenishes me, so I know I cannot not do it because my heart is so into it, I can't stop myself. I have a quote from years ago, Chris, that said, when you spot a problem, you have a human responsibility to seek a solution.
Amen. Well, I'm actually going to leave our listeners, as I always do, with a quote. I have a whole Excel spreadsheet of Quint Studer quotes. Quint, you probably don't even know I was typing many years ago. So some of these aren't in your book. It just came out of Quint's mouth. But this one is, what this thing called leadership is all about is working within the organization to maximize the human potential inside of it. And that's by Quint Studer. So Quint, thank you. And to our listeners, thanks for listening to TCN Talks.